Mavs Clippers. Let's start with that game, the nightcap. Unpack it for me.
Well, first of all, I think that the thing about it, let's be very, very clear. We agree with LeBron James. We agree with Dirk Nowitzki. That was a bogus ejection because the first technical foul that he received, I'm talking about Kristaps Porzingis, he should have never received that. I mean, you got to take into account, you got to put things or contextualize things per se. You're in a bubble. The players have made tremendous sacrifices. I understand you can't let fisticuffs take place and things of that nature, but my God, just a little shove and you're just going to issue technical fouls or whatever. It's just utterly ridiculous. And that's why I think it was bogus, and I think it was really unfair to the Dallas Mavericks and to the viewers out there. These players have made tremendous sacrifices. You're in the bubble in Orlando, Florida. You know what? Obviously, you're out there playing your tails off. It's the third quarter. It's game one of a first-round playoff series, and you're going to take one of the stars of the team out for something that innocuous? I think that was utterly ridiculous. I think the referees should be ashamed of themselves, plain and simple. Having said all of that, Luka Doncic, even though he had 11 turnovers, 42 points is 42 points. The brother is lethal. He's legit. He's the real deal. We all knew this, but it was validated and verified yesterday. We can't ignore that. In the end, however, it comes down to what I originally stated going into this series. Of course, Max did as well, since the Clippers have been his picks up from day one. Kawhi Leonard, Paul George led the way, 29, 27 respectively. Obviously, Marcus Morris showed up and contributed big time as far as I'm concerned. He had a complete game. He deserves a lot of props. In the end, their talent, their depth, their perimeter shooting. I think ultimately it was just too much for the two-headed monster that the Dallas Mavericks are to overcome, particularly when one of those monsters is taking out of the game completely unfairly in the third quarter. That's what I peeled from the game.
Well, for me, there's lots of storylines, including Stephen A., Paul George's performance. Lots of stuff happened in last night's game, but the biggest takeaway from me, and I picked the Clippers to win the whole thing, but I thought Dallas is a tough first-round matchup, even though the Clippers handled them in the regular season. The biggest takeaway from me is I feel like Dallas got robbed last night. I got to be honest. The flow of the game, every time the Clippers, you thought, and they had made it a closer game, but Dallas still had the lead when Porzingis was in the game, about halfway through the third quarter, a little less than halfway through the third quarter. And Dallas was control, like every time the Clippers would make a little run, Dallas, answered right back. And Porzingis gets ejected. Let's go back and look at the first tech. When did it occur and what were the circumstances? Porzingis gets called. He doesn't hit a shot on that end. Zubac really fouled him, right? They didn't call the foul. On the other end, Porzingis blocks a shot. They call the foul. So even though his shot wasn't exactly blocked, he was thwarted in the paint. By being fouled, no whistle. On the other end, he thwarts the opposing offense with a clean block. He gets a whistle. So already it's like, hold on, why is there like almost targeting Porzingis both ends of the floor? He's getting a raw deal at the very least, both ends of the floor. And so he's frustrated. And just because he pumps his fist for a second, they blow the whistle? That's the first tech? Come on. He had a right to be mad. The referees messed up twice on him, both ends of the floor. And then the second one, look, Doncic gets into it. I know he wasn't coming in as a peacemaker, but he was, and maybe he was instigating a little bit, but when you really look at what he did, he just caused some separation. He let them know, he let Marcus Morris, he let the Clippers know, that's my dude, you can't touch Luka. But really did it, yeah, it escalated, maybe basically like get away from my guy. And you tee him up again for that, and he leaves the game. What happened when Porzingis was ejected? Dallas goes from having a lead throughout most of that game once they went on that initial run to the Clippers taking over the game and winning comfortably. I mean, at the end, all of a sudden you look up, it's a 4-point game. How'd that happen? But they were always a couple of possessions up from then on in. That decides the game. But the thing about Porzingis, and I know, it's not like they weren't scoring when Porzingis was in the game. He changes the other team's offense. He makes it, and I know during the broadcast they're talking about his pick and roll defense and all that, but Porzingis changes the other team's offense. It is much harder to score when he's in the game. And once he was removed, the Clippers took over. I feel like the Mavs got robbed, Stephen A. I don't think they're going to win the series. Maybe they don't even win the game if Porzingis stays in. Maybe I still like the Clippers, but I don't know. But that is a raw deal for the Mavs in Game 1. That's a raw deal.
Well, I don't disagree with you, Max. I really, really don't. I just think that it's important to highlight, when you talk about them being robbed. You know what? Bad calls happen all the time, and definitely during playoff games. But you don't see stars get ejected too often, particularly for something as ticky-tack as that. But I think the important point, especially with a platform like this, it's important to really, really highlight this point to the NBA, to Adam Silver, who's done a phenomenal job, to the NBA league office, who obviously has done a phenomenal job. Let's be real about something here. You've got to cut these guys some slack. It can't be business as usual. It's not business as usual. They're in a bubble. They don't have home court. They're not around loved ones and family and things of that nature. They've been isolated in a bubble going on 2 months and counting if you continue to win. You're making an incredible, incredible sacrifices. So in other words, the regular temper tantrums, the things that particularly agitate you or what have you, it might be heightened to some degree. I think we've got to contextualize things in that regard and recognize the fact that there may be a need to cut these guys some slack. Again, you don't want somebody out there throwing haymakers and punching each other in the face and stuff like that. But shoving one another, the referees are clearly capable and team officials are clearly capable of getting into the middle of a fray and separating folks. You cannot have a situation where you got guys making this kind of sacrifice and you're asking them to make this kind of sacrifice and then you're going to snatch it away from them on something as bogus as that. Let's think about that for a second here. You're Porzingis and you're the Dallas Mavericks. You came to the bubble. You're here to try to win a championship, okay? You're not going to do it in my estimation, but clearly you're in the mix. You're a participant. You have made the necessary sacrifice. Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.